blitz, media blitz, a naval officer, glamorous lives, an extramarital affair, murder, subversion of justice. If you are thinking I'm going to review a Hollywood film today, you are absolutely wrong. Because the book I have in my hand is In Hot Blood, written by Bachi Karkaria. This book tells the story of Nanavati and murder of Prem Ahuja, a businessman from Punjab. The book has done a wonderful job. Bachi Karkaria has done a wonderful job by telling this story of Nanavati and murder of Prem Ahuja in the most dispassionate manner possible. Many of us are already aware of this story. Many of us were told about this story, Nanavati murdering Prem Ahuja, when we were growing up. But the story that we were told, it was lopsided. It was not dispassionate by any stretch of imagination. The reason our parents, our grandparents did not tell us a balanced story, the reason why our parents did not have balanced take on this story is because Nanavati has passed into folklore. He has already been idolized. He has already been turned into a hero. So heroes can do no wrong. It was all Prem Ahuja. He was a sinister man. He was a man who was after wives of different men. So the villain of the story, Prem Ahuja, was always made out to be villain of the story, the bad guy, and there is no one going to lament for the fall of the bad guy. So the strength of this book lies in the fact that the story of 1959, a very important and a very famous story, this story has been told in the most dispassionate fashion possible. Bachi Karkaria has also done a justice to all of us, because those of us who are not aware of the nuances of this story, we have come to know that what exactly happened, how it happened. The third strength of this story, of this book, lies in the fact that Bachi Karkaria, though she tells the story quite lucidly, clearly, and she does not mince her word, but despite these facts, she does not pass a judgment. She leaves it to her reader, to the audience, to decide who was wrong and who was right. And there are times when we are not able to make up our minds. There are times when Nanavati looks perfectly honorable man. There are times when you are angry at not only him but the entire system that is there in our society. So this book, I think, is a very important addition to the literature of I would say Indian folklores, modern folklores. There are many stories. Recently there was a murder case in Mumbai, Sheena Bohra murder case. We still do not know what exactly happened. So this book is an important addition to the modern Indian folklores, because it not only analyzed dispassionately what happened 60 years ago, but it also puts a spotlight on the society and the failings of the society, where we as a society have erred, and how we, in our quest to make somebody hero and make another people fallible, how we have in a way betrayed our own country, our own society. These are the strength of the books. What is the flaw of this book? I could not find much flaw. I'm not saying that this book is a wonderful book in all the senses. This book is a racy book. It races through. It tells a story which is a juicy story. But it is not something that is intellectual. If you have taste only in intellectual things, if you are not looking for something light, then you can of course skip this book. There is not much intellectual stuff in this book. It is not that we are always looking for intellectual stuff, right? We are also looking for gossip. We at some level, we all have that gossip monger in us. We are looking for small tidbits. We are looking for juicy stories. So I could not find flaw in this book, but if you are hell-bent to find something wrong, then well, this book doesn't have any intellectual stuff. This is the only flaw, but I am not willing to call it a flaw, because The story is about a murder, so why the hell do you expect any intellectual stuff to be there? Now going back to the story of 1959, Nanavati killing Prem Ahuja, a Punjabi man, a Punjabi businessman, and what happened after that. One thing that this book makes very clear, that Nanavati killing Prem Ahuja is not as important as our reaction to what happened in 1959, Prem Ahuja's killing by Nanavati. Why? Nanavati is a man who thinks he is an honorable man. He also has a sense of duty. He also has what you can call an ego. Why an ego? Because he thinks that he is a naval officer and he is guarding his country. He is always out in the open seas. So one day when he comes back, he is stunned to find that his adorable wife, a wife he dotes on, is no longer interested in him. So he asks her what has gone wrong, and Sylvia does not mince her words. She does not vacillate. She does not beat around the bush. She says it up front that I am no longer in love with you. And Nanavati is taken aback. Any man would be taken aback. And he asks, what wrong have I done? Sylvia's only complaint is that you are never there for me. You are always there in the seas, in the high seas. So he asks, who is the man? And Sylvia again does not lie. So if Nanavati is an honorable man, or a person who imagines himself to be an honorable man, so is Sylvia. She is not keeping her husband in dark, and she drops a bombshell there. She confesses that she is having an affair with Prem Ahuja, who is a businessman from Punjab. Nanavati knows this man because Prem Ahuja has been frequenting different parties thrown by different people in Mumbai. Nanavati, as I said, imagines himself to be an honorable man, so he does not take out his belt and beats his wife up. He does something that all honorable men would do. He finishes his meal with his wife, then takes his wife and children to a theatre. After dropping his wife and his 2 children in a theatre, he goes to his naval dockyard. He takes a revolver from there, drives straight to Prem Ahuja's home and shoots him dead. The story begins from here, because after a man has committed a crime, there is no justification for killing Prem Ahuja. What we will expect is that law will take its course and Nanavati will be punished. If Nanavati was punished duly and properly, if justice had been served, this story would not have become relevant in 2022. But this story becomes relevant because of a simple fact, that Nanavati is able to use all his connections at different level of governments to get a verdict in his favor. So he surrenders to police. The police takes him into custody, but even when he is being taken into custody, all police officers show undue respect to him. Nobody has the guts to cuff him up. Even when he is being put up in a cell, everyone is making sure that he does not lack anything, that he is taken care of properly. When the court proceeding begins in the lower court, at that time we had jury system. When the court proceeding begins at the lower level, lower court, what we could have expected, or the least expectation that all people could have at that time, was that Nanavati would have been tried not as a naval officer but as an ordinary person. But no, Nanavati is not tried as an ordinary criminal. He is not tried as a man who has killed lover of his wife. He is tried as a glamorous naval officer. And the jury is so much in awe with Nanavati that when he walks into the courtroom, everyone looks at him as if he is a god, or if not a god, then a demigod. Then the topmost naval officers pull all stops to ensure that the court does not pass a verdict against Nanavati. You can expect that much of loyalty from your ex-colleagues. But what about common people? And this is where we are stunned to learn that common people of Mumbai, and not only Mumbai but in different parts of India, they were all in favor of Nanavati. The women from different class and different parts of the country, they were saying that if Nanavati is convicted of having killed his wife's lover, then it would be subversion of justice. That is a fact, and I would repeat this once again so that it could sink in. The women were holding placards in different parts of this country and saying that if Nanavati is convicted for having killed his wife's lover, then that would be subversion of justice. And what we see at the end of the trial, the jury gives an unambiguous and unanimous verdict in favor of Nanavati. So a man who has himself confessed to have killed his wife's lover, a man who had himself walked into the police station and surrendered, he is set free because there is no evidence against him. What about the wife? What about Sylvia? Sylvia is not a teenager. Sylvia is not a child. Sylvia walked out on her husband, Nanavati, because he was never there for her. She decides that she wants to have love and warmth in her life, and she finds an escape in Prem Ahuja, a businessman from Sindhi community. But when this trial begins, Sylvia does a U-turn, or rather she turns 360 degree, and she says that I am a victim of a lecherous man's gaze. This man hoodwinked me into a relationship, and the defense counsel goes to the extent of saying that Prem Ahuja had offered, surprise of all surprise, Prem Ahuja offered Sylvia drinks laced with magic potions, and that magic potion made Sylvia fall in love with Prem Ahuja. So it was not Sylvia exercising her agency and going to another man, but rather it was the lecherous man who was not lacing Sylvia's drink with drugs, but rather lacing Sylvia's drink with magic potion and making her fall in love with him. That is what the defense counsel said, and that is what the court accepted. That is surprise of all surprise. And Nanavati, an honorable man who has been supported, who was supported by each and everyone, even the naval chief came to the court to give a testimony in favor of Nanavati and calling him a very honorable man. I don't know what was the relevance of a naval chief going to the court and saying he is an honorable man, because the question was not about somebody's honor, how honorable a man is, but the question was about killing a man just because he was having an affair with your wife, with consent of your wife, and you have confessed it. But no evidence is of any use when you have friends at high places. So he is set free. But then again, there are people, there are different types of people at different levels, civil society. So there is a little of a murmur against this verdict, and the prosecution decides to go to the High Court. The High Court, in my opinion rightly so, questions the wisdom of the verdict passed by jury system and holds Nanavati guilty of murder, and he is sentenced to life. And now we think that that's the end of the story. Finally law has caught up with Nanavati, and Nanavati is going to pay a price for what he has done. But no, not at all. Here again, the defense goes for an appeal. The appeal is entertained, and after that what happens makes a mockery of our democracy. People as high as Jawaharlal Nehru, people as high as Jawaharlal Nehru's sister, who was an ambassador to United Nations at that time, President of India, Governor of Maharashtra, everyone gets up in support of Nanavati. So you have Jawaharlal Nehru writing a letter to Governor of Maharashtra asking him to pardon Nanavati. And at the end of everything, we see an honorable man. I don't know how big an honorable man, but of course very big, because he has friends, as I said, at high places. Nehru, Nehru's sister, governor, president, admiral, everyone ganging up in favor of Nanavati, and Nanavati walking free despite having confessed to his crime. And this is what stuns you, this is what hits you, that this could have happened in 1959, but that is not the end. It still happens. So 1959 is still relevant in 2022, because if Nanavati's case was an exception, then we could have forgotten that was an old India. And this is the reason why I picked up this book. The reason number one was Nanavati's case is a very famous case. I think I was told this story when I was less than 8 years old by my grandfather. And as I said, our parents, our grandparents glamorized Nanavati. Nanavati, who should have been treated as a criminal. We cannot sympathize with a man just because his wife has decided to have an affair. Extramarital affair may be bad. You can criticize extramarital affair as an unethical, immoral thing, but it's not a crime. And you cannot sympathize with a man just because he no longer has charisma to ensure that his wife lives with him. Remember, Sylvia had decided to walk out on Nanavati, not under any duress, not under any pressure, but by exercising her individual agency, her right to decide that who she shall live with, led to an extramarital affair. Now, another thing that is important when we are talking about this book is class war in this country. Nanavati belonged to Parsi community. I don't know what was the population of Parsis in India in 1959, but in 2011 census, the total population of Parsis, it stood at 57,756, or I may be wrong with the last figure, with the 100 figure, but it was 57,000 few hundred. I'm not sure about their population in 1959, but even if they were 1 lakh, that's not a huge number. But Parsis have always been able to punch above their weight because of the fact that they have monopolized our business, they have monopolized the intellectual circle, and it is to their credit. Parsi as a community, they are a very hard-working community, and we should not, we should not be disturbed with the fact that Parsis have always managed to punch above their weight. Nothing wrong with it. But what is wrong is using your power in a very wrong way. So in Mumbai, when this scandal broke out, Parsis from different communities, from law, from business, from professional backgrounds, all of them came together, they coalesced together to support, to throw their weight behind Nanavati. There was a magazine, Blitz, which was being run by a Parsi editor. He, without any shame, decided that just because Nanavati is a Parsi, he needs to write in favor of a Parsi. And he indulged in something which we will call today propaganda or fake news. And what was the language used by the Parsi community to shore up support for Nanavati? Nanavati was shown to be a Parsi. Parsis are elite. They have better taste than other people. They listen to classical music, Western classical music. Parsis have produced the best of the chefs, the best of the musicians. The famous example of Zubeen Mehta was given at that time. They have very high taste. And who is this Prem Ahuja? A Sindhi man with no background, with no history, an upstart crow. He has the audacity to sleep with wife of Nanavati, a Parsi gentleman with a history, with a family history of so many years. This is what unfolded in the aftermath of the crime. So it was not Nanavati versus Prem Ahuja, or a wronged husband versus a lecherous man. Rather, it was Parsi, the elite, versus a Sindhi businessman, an upstart crow. This is how the debates at that time unfolded, and we know, unfortunately, Nanavati won. But this puts a spotlight on another aspect of our society. That our society has always favored elites in our society. If you have connections at the right place, if you have friends who are at different levels of the government, then no matter what you do, no matter what kind of crime you have committed, you can always game the system. But if you are an upstart crow, if you are just beginning in your life, then the entire system is going to gang up against you, and you are going to be turned into a villain, and you are going to be accused of having made somebody's wife drink a magic potion to make her fall in love with you. It sounds laughable today, but it was tragic comic at that time. What happened after 1959? What happened after Prem Ahuja's killing? His entire family was destroyed. He had no family members except his sister Nani Ahuja. Nani Ahuja was not married, and she did not marry after her brother's murder, because she had taken a vow that until and unless she gets Nanavati punished, she will not get married. And Nanavati was not punished, so she died an unmarried woman, and the rest of her life she spent trying to get Nanavati behind bars, but to no help. After death of Prem Ahuja, our society, with help of different people, media, lawyers, and all those kind of people, Prem Ahuja's even history was destroyed. History in the sense that he was shown to be a man who was lecherous since his teenage. So we had his classmates, maybe those classmates never had the opportunity to have a conversation with Prem Ahuja, and we can never know that those classmates were true or not, genuine or not, because Prem Ahuja was not there to talk about them or to tell us his side of the story. So the defense counsel paraded different people from different walks of life who had connection with Prem Ahuja at different points of time, and they gave their judgment on Prem Ahuja's character, that he was a lecherous man who was always after different men's wives. So he was not a man who should have been trusted. He is not a man we should have sympathies with. But there are other people who have given their own version of this story, and they say Prem Ahuja was not only a man who was having a lot of empathy, he was not only a man who was going out of his ways to help people from different walks of life, but he was also a cultured man, a soft-spoken man, and he should never have been killed for having an affair with a woman who consented to be with him. But as I told you, if you have powerful friends at different levels of the government, then you can ensure that you will be called honorable, while your victim will be called Ravan, a dishonorable man. Will I recommend this book? I will definitely recommend this book. But if you are looking for some intellectual stuff, then you won't find in this book. As I told you in the very beginning, the book races through. It is a racy story. The story of Nanavati killing Prem Ahuja, it does not and it cannot contain any intellectual stuff. So it's a racy story, it's a juicy story, it's a kind of a gossip book. We all have ear, we all have taste for gossip, because I believe every one of us have a gossip monger inside us. If you want to have a breezy read, if you want to have a racy read, I will highly suggest you this book. But if you are a kind of a person who is always looking for philosophical stuff, or if you are looking for high literature, then you can very easily skip this book. Total number of pages is 292. If you include the epilogue, then 297 pages. One more thing that I would like to talk about is that in the introduction of this book, Bachi Karkaria, whom we have known since a very long time, we all know her as a columnist for the Times of India. In the introduction of this book, she uses a phrase that I have problem with. She describes this murder saga as crime of passion. Those of you who have read the Times of India, I am using the word read because I no longer read the Times of India. So those of you who have read the Times of India, or those of you who read the Times of India, will know that crimes like murder, and rape, murder in the context of what I have just described, and rape, they are described in the Times of India as crime of passion. I never understand that how could murder and rape be crime of passion, and what kind of euphemism is this? So I have huge problem with the description of this murder saga as crime of passion. It was murder and we should call it by its name. Call a spade a spade. There is no need to use euphemism at all. So except this one small problem, I do not find any flaw in this book. If you are hell bent to find any flaw, I would say the book doesn't have intellectual stuff because it doesn't have intellectual stuff. It simply cannot contain anything that falls in the realm of high intellect. It's not a highbrow book by any standard, and it cannot be a highbrow book because it is describing a murder saga. That's the only one flaw that you can pick up with this book, but I don't find it as a flaw. I cannot say that it has any flaw for the reasons I have just explained it to you. The strength I have already described to you. It puts a spotlight on the problems that plague our society since a very long time. This is a book that tells you a story in the most dispassionate fashion possible, and this is a book that does not pass judgment. These are the strength of this book. The price of this book is 599 rupees, published by Juggernaut, but on Amazon you can buy this book for 300 rupees. I have already told you, total number of pages 297. In 2 sittings of 2 hours each, you will be able to finish this book. I recommend you this. Thank you for listening to this review. Meet you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.